Okay, now I want to talk about standard naming conventions so you can keep your Clay homepage as well as your actual Clay tables clean and easy to understand. Aside from it being hard to dig through this, the main problem is, if you don't have very, very strong naming conventions, it might be even hard for you, the one who built your Clay tables, to understand how your table works, especially when they get more complex. And it's going to be even harder when you want to hand it off to somebody else. So if you're handing it off to a freelancer or somebody else in your agency, or you're working in a company and you want your coworkers or your higher ups to be able to actually read and understand what your Clay table does, or come back to it later on, it's really important to have really clear naming conventions, nomenclature for your Clay tables, so you can understand what's going on. So I'm going to go through the three primary or four primary ways that we sort of make sure we build clean Clay tables, so that your team, your customers, etc., anyone who's going through Clay, even you, know what's going on. The first thing is, we didn't always listen to, and sometimes in our homepage here, but is having folders and proper table names. So we have a client name here, and we also have um, the name of the workbook or what it's for. So over here we have their account data model. All of the enrichments we want for the account model are on this table, this workbook. So you can see we have this workbook, right? And we have every single thing we need here. So this is actually a list of their industries. This is kind of an exception to the rule. But what we have down here is every single table name is the name of the property, the output property. So we keep it super specific of what we're doing on each table, so you don't have to go through 1,000 rows in a Clay table and understand where is the enrichment. And, I've built massive Clay tables with 70 columns, and you have to scroll through each one and try to figure out what's going on. It's very, very annoying. So having the table name properly, as well as the workbook name properly, as well as the tables named properly, super helpful. Another thing here is input and output columns. So you can see we have right here a little I next to company name in parentheses and the company website. So if we were ever to import a list of from a CSV or from any source, we're going to map the company name and the website to the import columns. And we'll know that these are the two columns that always start the enrichment. So these are the source columns, and then the Clayagent prompt and the AI prompt, everything else subsequently, is running based on these inputs. And then just other things like making sure these workflow columns, these sort of middle step columns, are named properly, like company summary, business classification. Ideally you could be even more specific with what this does. Luckily, Clay now uses AI to actually name the columns for you. But if it isn't 100% clear what it does, it's a good idea to rename them. And then over here we have O for the output. So this is the actual output data that we want to send off to either HubSpot or to our server. So we have a little O in parentheses here to signify that this is an output column. And so then in the last thing, which is the naming Clay table views properly, we have the default view, and then we have an output view. And you can create other views in between, other filter views if you want. But the output view should only have the output data that you want here. And probably you could even do a filter I only want to filter if this is not empty. So I always know that all of the rows I'm seeing here are finished outputs, and that's it. Maybe you have a few other columns here. But having really solid views of what's going on in each step with properly named Clay workbooks, Clay tables, Clay columns, and views makes it much easier for you and your team and your customers to understand what's going on. Otherwise, nobody's going to know what's going on. Even myself, when I've built more complicated Clay tables in the past, if a few weeks even go by, I'll often forget how the table works because it's so complicated, and I have to spend time catching myself up to speed on what it does and how it works. And even when I'm in the middle of building a table, if it gets very, very large, it's hard to scroll back around, go back and forth, and figure out what's going on. So this system makes it super easy for you as a sculptor, as a Clay table builder, along with everybody else that you're going to be showing this table to in your company, at your client's company, etc., how the table works. And even if a lot of time passes between the last time you worked on it and when you're looking at it now, you'll be much more able, you'll be better equipped, I should say, to catch up to speed very quickly and not waste time on just getting yourself back into the zone of what's even going on here. This is something else that I think separates professionals from amateurs and just the general population that's using Clay. So if you want to set yourself apart, this is a really, really good idea.